discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Bachoven.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Skibout.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item number 3, the appointment of Corey Westra to the Board of Adjustment. I would like to appoint Corey Westra to serve on the Board of Adjustment. Mr. Westra is a lifelong resident of Pella, only living in Elkhart, Iowa for 2 years while serving in the military. Mr. Westra holds a BA degree in exercise science from Central College and a Master of Science in High Education Administration from Southern New Hampshire University. He recently retired as a first sergeant from the Army after 22 years of service. His military foreign assignments included deployments to Kuwait, Kosovo, and Afghanistan. Mr. Wester's military experience allowed him to support civil authorities in response to multiple domestic incidents, most recently Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma. Since departing the Army, Mr. Westra has been employed with Centurion Stone of Iowa as a project manager. He currently resides with his wife, Kira, and their 3 children at 911 Hazel Street. And if approved, Corey's new 5-year term would expire on January 1st, 2024. Do I hear a motion for approval? Skibout and support DeYoung. Any discussion? Sounds like an excellent candidate. And thank you for your service. Seeing no comments, no discussion, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Skibout.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Bachoven.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Motion carried. We will move on to public forum. If there's anyone in attendance that would like to address the council regarding any agenda items, please step forward, speak in the microphone, tell us who you are, where you live, and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no takers, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Van Strylen,
Support.
support DeYoung. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Bachoven.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Skibout.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Motion carried. On to the public hearings. Number 1A, a public hearing on the adopting of the fiscal year 2019-20 budget. Mike, if you explain, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to. I'd like to draw your attention to the big board for a brief presentation on this item. As Mayor Mueller did say, proposed budget is for fiscal year 2020. And this would be the fiscal year that would start on July 1st of 2019 and extend through June 30th, 2020. In addition, what's also being presented this evening is a 5-year capital improvement program. And we have a few of those highlights tonight in the presentation. The key takeaways when we talk about the 2020 budget overall, as far as total revenue and the size of the budget, as you can see right up here, bottom line, we're just over $44 million as far as what's being proposed. And as you can see, compared to the 2019 budget, it's an increase of about $5.4 million. That's somewhat deceiving when you look at it, and we'll be explaining this later on in the presentation. The key takeaway is we are currently facing mandates from the Iowa Department of Natural Resources concerning treatment plant standards. As council is aware, that's about a $4.5 million project. That plus the latest the mandate prior to that, we have about $400,000 on that particular mandate. That makes up about $4.8 million of these bond proceeds that we're proposing for the 2020 budget, which is the lion's share of the revenue increase on just a pure cash flow basis. As far as expenses, just over $43 million, and as you can see, the proposed budget this evening has a proposed surplus of $894,000. Now that is a considerable amount of money, but the key takeaway here is if you look at the total expenditures on the total revenue, that's about 98% of total revenue, so we have a 2% contingency in the budget. And that's important because as council is aware, we're currently in the plans of formulating plans for a municipal telecommunications utility that we'll talk about later on in the presentation. Anytime you're planning for a new utility, it's always wise to have a surplus. And so if you wanted to look at it as for every $100 spent taking in the revenue, we're proposing to spend 98% and having a 2% contingency for this upcoming year. Corey, let's go ahead, please. I believe we've covered that, but when you look at outside of the municipal telecommunications utilities, some other major improvements or projects the city council is currently contemplating this year could be a potential community center replacement or renovation, potential renovations in the city's downtown, the downtown streetscape plan. and capital improvement program in the city's downtown, which is being driven by the infrastructure needs in the downtown, namely the underground infrastructure, and this would be water, the sanitary sewer mains, and the storm sewer needs. As far as rates are concerned, with this year, very important to note that if council approves the budget this evening, this will be the 18th consecutive year the city's tax rate has been at $10.20 with this. The budget was also proposed to maintain the current water rates, electric rates, and solid waste rates. We are proposing an 8% increase in wastewater rates, and that's directly attributed to the Iowa Department of Natural Resource mandates. Overall, with the 8% increase, it's right around $4 per month would be the cost of the typical household in Pella. We have one new position that's proposed with this budget. That's the addition of the school resource officer. The cost of this position will be split equally with the Pella Community School District. Corey, let's go ahead, please. When you look at the property tax rate, this chart up here is very busy, but what we try to do is get communities around the state of Iowa that are about 10,000 in population. Key takeaway is we've been at $10.20 forever. You can see the fluctuation of these communities up here. You average everybody but Pella in this chart, we're at $10.20, they're at $15. That's the takeaway. We have one of the lowest tax rates in the state of Iowa, and that's directly attributed to the financial stewardship of the city council over the last 18 years. So job well done to the current city council and previous city councils as well. But let's go ahead, please, Corey. As far as 8% wastewater increase, which would be effective on July 1st, 2019, again, these are due to the DNR mandates for wastewater treatment standards that we have no choice in, or very little choice in. The key takeaway is when you look at the city's water and wastewater rates, we're very comparable to neighboring communities. We're comparable to anybody in the state of Iowa. In fact, when you look at this, the 8% increase, it's important to note that we've had increased rates both on the wastewater side for DNR mandates, and also we just recently had a $15 million water treatment renovation project that we've done that secured this community drinking source and treatment needs for the next 20 years. But when you look at the current rates where we're at with the typical residential customer, right now we're at $45. We're proposing to go up to about $49 for the typical residential customer. We're at $173 for the commercial customer, be just shy of $188 per month on the commercial customer. And the large industrial that uses over 100,000 gallons per month, they're at $472 once we propose 510. When you compare them to neighboring communities, it's still very respectable, even with the 8% increase. It's also important to note, comparing utility rates is a little bit deceiving sometimes. As everyone knows, in Pella, we have a very high quality of water standard, both on the drinking side and on the wastewater side on it, with it. But not everybody has those same standards. And when you, generally speaking, when you're talking water and wastewater rates, your rates are determined by the level of treatment that you undertake. And for water, it's the level of water treatment that you have before you put it in your system. Likewise, on the wastewater side, those treatment standards, and that's a lion's share of your rates right there. So with it, while we're very comparable, comparing ourselves to others, it's also important to note, at least from the drinking water side of things, we have a very high quality of water that we do offer our communities, our citizens rather, and not all communities can make that claim. Let's go ahead to the electric side. This is something that, you know, I personally have a vested interest in, as well as the city council is, but we've made some very good strides over the last 17 years. 17 years ago, there were surveys in the state of Iowa with electric rates, and there was 50 communities surveyed, and I think at the time there were 48 out of 50 with electric rates. Well, we're in 2017 is the latest data right up here. The average for Iowa public-owned utilities is 9.8 cents revenue per kilowatt hour. We're at 9.1. We moved into the lowest third for municipal utilities in the state of Iowa. And in my opinion, when the 2018 and 2019 numbers come out, we're going to continue to make those gains because we have a power supply contract that's locked up through the year 2057. Power supply accounts for 80% of your cost in an electric utility. We have a long-term power supply contract through the year 2057, reliable contract from Missouri River Energy Services. A lot of these folks are still trying to figure out what they're doing for power supply, which only leads to increased costs. So we should be gaining even more competitiveness in the future, but that number has been coming down with us compared to others. The other thing to keep in mind is when you compare rates out there, reliability is everything. With our electric utility, we have an excellent track history of reliability, and people talk about the cost of energy, but you never really discuss the So we have a lot of redundancy in our system, made a lot of capital improvements in our system, and it's geared towards reliability, and that's probably one of our benchmarks with our utility. But overall, the good news is, average for the state of Iowa is 9.8, we're at 9.1, and we're getting lower compared to the competition. So we're making positive gains on the electric utility side. Let's go ahead, please, Court. Let's talk a little bit about those capital projects. These are just the projects in the year 2020. What's being proposed for this upcoming year would be the reconstruction of University Street. This would be right ahead of your oriented everyone. The Caldwell Park tennis courts are right here. Caldwell Park's down here. East 8th Street's right here. We're proposing to renovate or reconstruct this section of University Street right here, very highly traveled road in our corporate limits. The other project that we're proposing for the street side that will be starting this summer, shortly after tulip time, would be reconstruction of the Gooseport Alleyway project, totals just over $855,000. This would be the alleyway that's between the old Strawberries building and the meat market was highlighted right up here. That project is set to start after tulip time. We'll be holding work sessions most likely either in early April or late April for that project, and more to come on that, but that is included in the budget. Wastewater treatment facility improvements. For the treatment components, about $4.5 million right down here, and these are due to the DNR mandates down here, namely 4 revised limits for ammonia, E. coli, and dissolved oxygen. In addition, we also have some on the collection side, about $400,000 for the West 3rd storm sewer project that we have, the sanitary sewer storm sewer project that we have scheduled on West 3rd as well. So if you add both those together, we're at $4.8 million. And as we stated, actually at our last council meeting, I believe, we had the presentation or overview of the business plan for the municipal telecommunications utility. We're currently in the due diligence process for the new utility audit. We're working through the process, more to come on that. But anytime this gets back to the budget surplus that we have, anytime you look at starting a new utility, we need to be very sound and very practical on all other aspects of the city. And so that deals directly with the proposed surplus that we have in this budget of roughly just over $890,000 for this next year. So with that, I know that was a lot to digest. The good news is the city council saw this ad nauseum, all these things, during our work sessions that occurred in February. So Mayor, I believe that concludes our presentation this evening. I'm more than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2020.
Thank you, Mike. Mandy, any written comments received? Any oral comments from council?
I just want to say, Mike shared his thanks with us for working hard on the budget, but I think Mike and Corey really deserve the pat on the back, because what people probably don't realize is anytime we talk about any kind of improvement in the community, there's always a conversation about how it affects utility rates and tax rates and things like that. So thanks to you and Corey for working hard on keeping all that balanced for us, because that's not easy.
Let's not forget the department heads.
Right,
And
right,
the
for
rest
sure.
of the staff. Yeah, and the rest of the staff. It truly
It's a
is
big team.
effort. It is
Yeah.
a big team effort. So congratulations and a big thanks to everyone involved. And I'd like to just thank the council and prior mayor too for, 18-year run of $10.20 taxable valuation. I don't think there's anybody that can hold the record to that. And I think that's just outstanding, just outstanding. So congratulations to everyone and thank you. Any oral comments from members of the audience? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Support.
Coleman, support Ms. Stryland. All in favor? Yeah, there's no other comments. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Bachman.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Eva.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Motion carried. On to 1B, resolution number 5950, entitled resolution adopting the fiscal year 2019-2020 annual budget. Mike, is there anything to add?
No, sir.
Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Move to adopt by
Support.
Young and support Vanderhorst.
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Eva. Peterson.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Motion carried. On to petitions and communications. 1A, a special event permit request for Resurrected Tin's 40th annual car show. Mike, if you explain.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy. Once again, I'd like refer everyone's attention to the board for a brief presentation on this item. As the mayor said, special event permit request we're receiving this evening is from the Resurrected Tin Car Club, and it's for the 40th annual car show that's being proposed to be held on Saturday, July 13th. The event is scheduled to run from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. as well. As far as street closures, it'd be this green highlighted area that we have up here on the big board. This is mainly Franklin Street between Broadway and East First Street, and Main Street between Washington and Liberty Street here for the day on Saturday, July 13th. It's important to note, Mr. Mayor, that all departments have reviewed this application. The fee and insurance certificate have been received by city staff, and we are recommending approval this evening.
Very good, thank you, Mike. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Bakoven? Support. Support DeYoung. Discussion? Chief, do we have in that permit for the street closures that if the Resurrected Tin group bugs out early, that we can reopen those streets? I know that was a point at one several years ago, that they left early for what, a different event or weather or something, and we were unable to reopen the streets because we had them closed. Do we have that fixed?
Yes, if the person who requests the permit releases the permit, then we can go.
Okay, all right, I recall, and it was several years ago, that we were unable to reopen the streets because they were quote-unquote closed. It just created an unfortunate situation.
And we also have the authority with the police chief to override the group too, if
Okay.
need be.
All right,
So
very good.
please keep that in mind. We don't use that power, but we always have that in hand if needed.
All right, very good, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Bakoven?
Yes.
DeYoung?
Yes.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Skibout? Peterson?
Yes.
Motion carried. On to 1B, resolution number 5951, entitled, "A resolution temporarily closing public ways or grounds in connection with a special event known as Resurrected Tin's 40th Annual Car Show." Mike, is there anything to add?
No, sir.
Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
And Stryler?
Support.
Peterson? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
DeYoung?
Yes.
Bakoven?
Yes.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Skibout?
Yes.
Motion carried. On to 2A, special event permit request for the tour, detour. Mike, explain.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, once again, I'd like to refer everyone's attention to the big board for this item. This particular event request is from Bethany Christian Services. It's for a tour of the tour. The event is scheduled to start at 5 p.m. on Friday, May 10th, and will actually end on Saturday, May 11th at 5 p.m. It is important to note that this would be the third year for the event. We do have a description of the purpose of the event as well, but it's ultimately it's an effort to raise funds for ordinances for Bethany Christian Services. And we do, as part of this request, Mr. Mayor, have a resolution to reserve 6 parking spaces on Broadway Street during the event as well. So to orientate everyone, Torrent is right over here. This place, right, Central Park would be reserved, and our 6 parking spaces on Broadway Street would also be reserved as well. It is important to note that all city departments have reviewed this application. We have received the fee and insurance certificate, and we are recommending approval this evening.
Thank you, Mike. Do I hear a motion for approval? DeYoung? Support. Support Skibout. Any discussion? If anybody's ever watched them do that tour, the detour, you need to come up and watch it. It's an amazing thing. Illinois. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
DeYoung?
Yes.
Skibout?
Yes.
Bakoven?
Yes.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Motion carried. On to 2B, resolution number 5952, entitled Resolution Temporarily Closing Public Ways or Grounds in connection with a special event known as the Tour Detourin. Mike, is there anything to add?
No, sir.
Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Bakoven?
Support.
Support DeYoung. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Bakoven?
Yes.
DeYoung? Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Skibout? Peterson?
Yes.
Motion carried. On to number 3, fiscal year 2019-20 funding request presentation from the Pella Convention and Visitors Bureau, also known as the CVB. Mike, if you'd explain, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and unfortunately, we do have Ms. Gil Vandenberg who will be taking the floor very shortly. We'd like to turn the floor over to CVB expires on March 31st of this year. Currently, our current agreement requires the city to pay 55% of all hotel and motel taxes received by the city to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And the good news is we've seen a steady increase in hotel and motel taxes received by the community over the last few years. If you look at 2015, total collections were right over $339,000. This year, we believe we're gonna be somewhere near $416,000, and most of that effort and increases is directly attributed to the actions of the CVB. So, Mr. Mayor, with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn the floor over to the planning board to give their presentation.
I'm bringing the whole party.
We love parties. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, great. Well, Mr. Mayor, council, thank you so much for letting us come this evening and present to you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Connie Voss. I am the 2019 chair for the Pella Convention and Visitors Bureau Board. Now that's a mouthful. I want to start out really this evening by offering our sincere thanks to all of the council members, meeting with the CVB board meetings and having some great one-on-one conversations and discussions with us. We really did appreciate the comments, questions, insights, inputs that you gave us. Most of all, we appreciated the time that you spent with us as well. I'm sure you are all aware that Jill provides you with communication as well as providing us as the CV board with monthly communications. But tonight we want to expand on that just a little bit more and just really let you know how the CVB impacts our community of Pella, Iowa. Okay. On the board, you do have a list of our current CVB board members. This is a very diverse group, all occupations represented here. They all have very valued opinions about tourism and growth here in Pella, and they've been deliberately chosen to serve on our board for what they can bring to our table. They have very valued voices for tourism in Pella, and we really do appreciate everything that everybody does. Just to kind of run through this just a little bit, I guess I'm first on the list up there. I'm on the board representing a retired 18-year business here in Pella. I owned and operated the Tulip Tea Room. We have Rob Banstra. Rob represents lodging with his Cheesemaker Inn, bed and breakfast, but also with his family association of Frisian Farms. Jennifer Cruz. Jennifer represents the Red Rock Army Corps of Engineers on our board, a very vital person. And Larissa DeBryan represents one of our manufacturers here in Pella with Precision Pulley. Lori Ellenson serves as our Pella Historical Society liaison, and she has been their past chair. Lowell Oliver Shaw, probably our most passionate Dutchman on our board. He represents meeting facilities and is with Central College Graham Conference Center. Sean Rhoda is with us tonight representing retail and eateries and the Downtown Historic Retail Group. We have Sherry de Grotenhuis, also representing lodging with the Royal Amsterdam Hotel, and Sherry has been our past chair. Millie Vandekeef. Millie is a Pella historian. She is an educator, retired from Central College, and our #1 volunteer. Jerry Voss is our corporate liaison with Vermeer Corporation, and Jeanette Vaughn is also with us, the City of Pella Community Services, and she represents the city on our board. And of course, the CVB consists of Jill, our director, who is full-time, and Lindsay Vinsola, who is our part-time staff, and Lindsay works 24 hours a week. Okay. So I'm going to turn this over to Jill, and she can give you a little more insight on tourism.
So in the tourism industry, we use somewhat of an odd analogy because we talk about a visit being part of a date. It's kind of the world of dating. We have to connect and build relationships with people. We have to get our name out there and get ourselves out there in order for people to decide to visit with us. We do this through online dating, such as our website, maybe videos, our social media outlets. We also connect in person or one-on-one through our trade shows, whether that would be the current sports and vacation shows we're doing right now, maybe group travel shows that we do throughout the year, but then also our 11 days at the Iowa State Fair. We also connect to people by just bumping into a date. That might be people that might see our semi out on the highway. They might see a billboard up and down 163 or I-80. They also might see a TV commercial or maybe a print or digital ad somewhere. We also tend to reconnect. We want to continue to reconnect with potential visitors, those people that have been to Pella in the past and hopefully will be returning again. There's a lot of people that do come back year after year. Working with these motor coaches, it's interesting to me how many come back every single year. We have a group from Pennsylvania that comes every year on a motor coach. So they've had a great experience and they're coming back and they're telling others. In order to make that great connection from the first date, we need to impress them. And that's what the CVB hopes to do by hosting and assisting in various events. We also host a customer service training session each year that helps our frontline staff feel more comfortable with greeting our guests and being professional about it, offering insight and encouraging longer stays. Those frontline guests are joined in those customer service training sessions. Interestingly enough, we have quite a few corporate people that attend those as well. Those people that might be involved in customer relations within the corporations. We welcome them also. We train volunteers to operate and help us with 2 visitor centers here in Pella. We also operate and oversee the Central Park Information Mill. So we oversee a lot of visitor related volunteers. This year we actually have a new volunteer coordinator that works for us overseeing the windmill downtown, and that's Jody Bachhoven. Many of you probably know her as a very full of energy Pella enthusiast. She just spent today at the Capitol with the Queen and Court, and she's just a great promoter, and I think she'll do great things at the Info Mill for us. We also advocate in building statewide tourism support, which is an ongoing project. We stay very involved statewide, but we also look at local initiatives that will continue to generate more tourism here in Pella. The overall goal is a long-term relationship. In this date, we might end up having people decide to marry us and live here and become part of our workforce, or even bring a new business here as well. So tourism overall is relationships, and the relationships all start with that first date. And you can go ahead, Corey. This is just a little bit more about the impact that tourism has on our community as well as our county. And up in the right-hand corner, you will notice the 3 main reasons that people travel here in Iowa. Ironically, it's food and beverage, which I think we do a good job of that here. Scenic, nature, and recreation. And luckily, we are located right here next to Iowa's largest lake. So recreation is a huge draw for us, and we promote the lake area heavily as well. And number 3 is shopping. And we've got excellent boutiques here in our community, so gratefully, we can follow through with all those reasons and bring people here for those reasons. We don't actually have the 2018 totals in yet, but wanted to share that in 2017, over $52 million came into Marion County due to tourism. That number has risen by just short of 26% in the last 10 years. These are new dollars, new taxes coming into and staying in our community, paid by our visitors. Sales tax from tourism in 2017 was actually $3.3 million into the county, and $430,000 came as a local or option tax. These taxes brought in help support our local services, our streets, our quality of life amenities, and some of these taxes, of course, are supporting those things through the city as well. So you're receiving part of those taxes, which obviously you know that, but so we help to support those things going on in our own community. Just a little example to throw in here is the Tour of Homes, which is an event that we host under the CVB. Last year we had a little bit of a down year in ticket sales, a lower year of ticket sales. And as you might guess, with a lot of the things going on right now and have been going on for a while, but predictions in the forecast were not favorable for the event that weekend. So ticket sales were down slightly, but we did still have 2,500 tickets sold. Of those 2,500 tickets, 66% of them were sold to visitors outside of the county. So everyone outside of Marion County. The average spending per travel party overnighting one night in the state of Iowa is $361 a day. We backed out those overnight stays knowing that our attendees for Tour of Homes are mostly day trippers, but still found that approximately $412,000 was left in Pella during that last year's Tour of Homes, even in a down year. And most importantly, the third tax that comes into the community from our visitors is, of course, the hotel motel tax. To us being the most important because that is our existence. That is how we are mostly funded, is through the hotel motel taxes. Since the CVB is funded through mostly through hotel motel taxes, we feel that we might be just a little bit more sustainable or self-sufficient or self-supporting because we have to work hard to get those taxes into the hotels, get people overnighting, for us to have funding sources through the city. We are not using city taxes, we are funded through hotel motel taxes. And finally, we're happy to report that hotel occupancy in 2018 here in Pella was up by 3.6%, where statewide there was a decrease in occupancy at our hotels. We're hopeful that just even a fraction of that increase is due to the result of the efforts of your CVB. We are aware that dollars may fluctuate. We may not always see increases in hotel occupancy, but we need to continue to market our community in many ways because it's getting us out there. It's hoping, we're helping to bring tourism, but we're also helping to bring workforce and new residents into your community as well. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sean, who's going to share a little bit about our partnerships before you can.
Like Connie said in her introduction, I'm Sean Gorda. I'm married to Jerry, who owns Belts, which I guess takes me along for the ride. And so I am getting involved in some things that were not necessarily on my bucket list, but on his bucket list. So here we go. Jill with the CVB, and I'm learning as part of the board the relationships and the cooperation amongst, especially as I represent the downtown retailers, how important it is to have the right representation at these travel shows, climate downtown is a little bit changing and evolving as we speak. We have several stores empty, and we are working as CVB to keep tourism alive, well, and those dollars coming back to town. We did some research on the city's comprehensive plan, and if you read that carefully, tourism and a vibrant downtown are very high on the list of important items that the city has adopted to back and support, and CVB is doing a really good job of that. I'm going to talk about the partnerships, the visitor guide, which gets distributed throughout 2019. This is the new one. CVB worked really hard to help our downtown group. As member of the downtown group, we imported the businesses to buy down advertising. Lindsay was gracious, and as part of her job duties did a lot of the design work, which if you know anything about design work can be very costly for ads. And we had 24 of our businesses advertised this year in the Visitor's Guide, which is, I think, a record. I don't know for sure. It's the most I've ever been involved with. The digital guide is available, as well as we mail thousands and thousands of them out to contacts. The website is another way we partner. Every link on the CVB's new website, Visit Pella, is to the businesses, corporations. You can get everywhere you need to. Everything is cross-referenced. The downtown group is also working on a web page which will link back to CVB. So as you know, with social media, it's important to click to be able to leave places and then to connect back. Some of the events that we work on are especially, it's especially important to us to make them overnight stays. CVB has worked really hard to help revamp the fall wine walk. This year was more successful than ever. CVB basically volunteered their time to help the downtown group get it organized. They helped sell tickets. We had over 400 people attend, which was up from about 150 to 200 in previous years. Tulip Time is another way that we partner. We support the Pella Historical ticket sales. Jill does, and her group does a lot of organizing with the festival buses, so that's return visitors. We also staff the mill and the village center point and help with a lot of the marketing. A biggie for us is to support and help host the Red Rock Balloon Fest. Red Rock Lake hosts over 800,000 to 1 million guests a year, which that number blew my mind away, just because when you live close, you kind of take for granted that it is such a huge draw for recreational activities. All of our events are posted at the lake, and it helps bring people back and forth to town. They come from their campsites, they come from different events, and they visit our retailers and eateries downtown. We also partnered in a booth with Red Rock this year at the Iowa State Fair. 51% of our tourism in Marion County is due to recreation, and so that's an extremely important partnership. Another new initiative for last year was the A to C Foodie Trail. And I think you all either have a copy of it, or yeah, Lindsay has a copy for you to see. We got a grant to help make this possible. Being a 501c6, there's very few grant opportunities available, but this was one that we could apply for. This actual project received nationwide attention from bloggers and travel writers from Chicago to New York, and it recently won awards. It got 2 awards from the Iowa Tourism Conference in conjunction with our partnership, and media recognition from the food and beverage tourism. So that's huge for us. And the next slide is all about our bus tours. 51 bus groups came to Pella in 2018. A bus that overnights for one night carrying 40 guests leaves $13,000 in Pella. That doesn't include include the Dutch letters, the Pella bologna, which is important to us, and any boutique spending that they do. So the CVB is present to greet each bus upon arrival, and as Jill said, we have so many repeat guests. And as you know, Pella is known for its hospitality and guest tourism. The face of hospitality is Jill and Lindsay and their office, and that is so appreciated. So over 12,000 requests are fulfilled in 2018 for guests looking for more visitor information. One digital advertising campaign we are currently running has generated 3,310 requests. That was as of the middle of February, so we're thinking it's probably up over 4,000 right now. That means they either get a digital copy of the visitor guide, a mailed out copy, and so they are busy at their office right now sending out hundreds and hundreds of visitor guides to hopefully bring them back when it finally warms up. So we welcomed 6,483 visitors last year to Central Park's information windmill. That is run by basically volunteers with a manager. CVB considers the windmill their satellite office. That is the touch point, the easiest access when you are a visitor to town. It's visible, it's open on Saturdays, and it's run and manned by volunteers such as Millie, who are a wealth of information on Pella. I'm a little partial to the Dutchman I call Dad, and he does too. The people that volunteer at the windmill are just so enthusiastic, love Pella, and put such a good face on your town. And so we consider that another great extension of our office. And like Jill said, Jody Bachhoven is going to be the volunteer coordinator this year, and our biggest ambassador. So I think that's my part. So if you want to see the ads and what was available to all the retailers, it's in the center of the visitor guide, and we have those with us too.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Next slide, please, Corey. This year has marked a year of transition for us at the CVB. We're under our first one-year contract with the city at a new percentage rate, and it's been a year of transition for us. We have relocated directly on the square now, across from the U.S. Bank drive-through. We are tucked back there a little bit, so we may work with the city to improve our signage to get people to take that turn, to take that corner once we get them in town on the square. We have built a new website. It is gaining a lot of traction, and you can see from some interior shots that it is a warm, welcoming center once you're inside. We did have some sunken costs for setting that up, infrastructure, furniture, etc. We think we're over that hump now, so we can now plow that $10,000 to $12,000 into more activities, more events that come back into the city. Next slide, please. Our goals and initiatives for our busy 1.5 staff members, just by nature of that number, 1.5, these ladies could not be in two places at one time. So if Jill's out on the road at a trade show, doing promotions, meeting a bus, or whatever, we hope that Lindsay's there to keep the door open and welcoming our guests in. This year we see a couple of opportunities. One is the Corps of Engineers link that we have with those 800 to 1 million visitors just down the road. We see that as a growth opportunity for us, as well as social media. When we take a look at our poll data, the average visitor to Pella is age 50-60. But we know there's a demographic of young kids out there that we can reach. When I say kids, I mean under that demographic. And we can reach them through social media. Our proposed budget adds more hours to do exactly that. We definitely want to attack that area when we can and develop our social media presence on all of our platforms. Our budget also includes that Interstate 80 sign that you start to see by Kellogg. It is dilapidated and dated. And we do need to replace that sign that is 11 years old. That features in our budget as well for a cost of $8,900. We'll be putting out a calendar of events that is focused on our visitors. We do have a citywide calendar of events, but that covers everything for the locals. We're going to produce one that is focused on our visitors to get them into our establishments. We need to refresh our video, our social media all the time. With the rapid changes in Pella, we need to be able to keep up with what's fresh when we show images of downtown and all the changes that occur. We want to take a look at new events, create events that bring visitors to town. We still have our eyes on the Christmas market, the Dutch Christmas market, but right now it's just out of our reach with the amount of committees and all of the city support, all the volunteers, and not to mention the budget to pull off an event like that. But what we do have, and we think is doable and feasible in our proposed budget, is the tulip sculptures. This allows us to not only tap into the Dutch heritage of the tulip, but you can distribute it throughout the community, in the quarters of the community. You can have our library sponsor scavenger hunts. Can you find them all? Can you find them at the sports park? Can you find them in Caldwell Park? Can you find them on the bike path? Will you find them at the windmill? Or wherever else we decide to place them throughout the city. It's a three-dimensional tulip about chest height, and each purchaser of those tulips can decorate them to whatever artist they would like and to their style. But it also gives us a social media opportunity. If you know that Pokemon Go, where you find different objects, and once you've found it, then you can put it into your collection, if you will.
How much are they?
Well, what we're going to do is buy the molds first, and that's kind of the cost. That's the kind of the sunken cost, if you will. And after that, it's going to be, well, highest bidder, or it's going to be
As much as you can get.
right, as much as we can
Cool.
get out.
Pretty neat.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
very cool.
actually do have one bid that I received on those today, and then I have a couple others that we're going to be inquiring with. But I was a little shocked because I looked into this project 10 years ago already, and now we're kind of coming back to it. But the initial cost to create the first mold and that type of thing, the whole cost is around $7,000. So it's substantial. And then they said from then on, it could be approximately $700 per sculpture. So that's what a business might pay or an organization might pay and that type of thing. But I'm gonna look at a couple other options because that was a little higher than I was wanting to
Better
see.
than I thought it was going to be.
Well, and Jill talked to Stein, just a side note of that. You know, they have to be they have to be weighted on the bottom. You can't just have a piece of foam in Iowa.
But we're confident economies of scale will kick in and
It's a
bring
neat
that
idea.
down to an affordable cost for all of us. Next slide, please.
What are they made of, if I can ask?
It's, the ones I'm looking at is fiberglass and then they're weighted in the bottom.
Okay.
So our proposed budget on the screen, hopefully we've described that we're an incredibly busy organization with our 1.5 staff members, and we work together, partnerships. You know, once we exchange numbers on that date we'll talk about it initially, we have to keep our brand out there in all of our advertising magazines. But once we have that number, we're confident that we can sweet talk them into an upsell. Bill or Jill rather will tell the story about meeting the bus or getting that call from the tour bus where they just want to stop by a bakery. And by the time that Jill's done with them, they need to visit the windmill, they need to go to the meat market, they're staying overnight. So once again, once we can get them to take that exit, and the CVB does a great job of the advertising with that brand, to get them to take the exit. But once they're here, well, we can persuade them with the many virtues of our city. If you remember our presentation from last year, we talked about our demographic being a donut, hollow in the middle, because we're not collecting funds from anybody in the center of that donut through the taxes. The 5% is being paid by the donut and by our visitors. I'll submit to you that has a small amount or a small portion of why we can keep our taxes down to the level that they are. And it's thanks to the CVB, Jill and Lindsay, and all of our volunteers that make that happen every single year. What we're asking for, and we hope that we've proven to you, is a 2% increase in our budget. It amounts to $8,000 a year. We think that we can do good things with that budget. We think that we can field some tulips. We do ask for a 3-year contract as well. By the time that you have a city budget that is not aligned with the fiscal budget of the CVB, and you have 6-month delayed payment of that hotel motel taxes, you can imagine the complexity and the gymnastics that has to take place financially in order to get through a 1-year budget. But that's what Jill has done, that's what Jill does, and does very well. We're asking for a longer term to stabilize that more so in the future. Pending your questions, Mayor and Council, that concludes our CVB brief.
I just want to
Any
say,
questions
I
other
just
than-
want to compliment Jill on the monthly reports that you give us. And it's very detailed. You really show how much is being done and how the city is benefiting from you folks. And I just want to hold you up and congratulate you on the work that you are doing on our behalf. It really shows by what you've shown us today.
Those will not go away with a
Good.
with a brief.
I would like to chime in on that too and just say I really appreciate the monthly input, the information that you guys do send out. I think you do an awesome job. And I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I think at 2%, I don't look at that as an expense. I look at that as an investment. So,
Sure.
I mean, from my perspective, I certainly don't have a problem with it. But,
I thought it was really interesting when we met for lunch, if as you start talking about the things that they do that we don't necessarily hear about, and all the other organizations that they're working with on a day-to-day basis, like the big industries in town, and just they don't manage just one Facebook page. There's multiple pages, and I mean that all takes time, and so I think they do a great job of that. I'm always surprised when. And you can't always believe everything you read on Facebook, right? But the amount of times that Pella is nominated in the top 5 or #1 for places to spend a weekend and places to go shop and places to raise a family and stuff.
That's
And so,
small town.
yeah, I mean that's really cool, and I got to believe that if you're a big business in town trying to recruit people, those things matter. So I think that's all a part of what the service they provide. So, good job.
I also.
1.5 people. 1.5.
I wanted to point out just a couple things. I congratulate you on your really strong board, because really a board or an organization is only as good as its board. And you've done a very, very masterful job of creating a board with very diverse talents that are all congealing together to help our community. And I just wanted to tell a private story or a personal story. We were asked to have our home on the tour. And at first I thought, oh, that's a Herculean task. And Nick was all in, of course, because he's thinking of these busloads of women that he could charm for hours. But what that tour did for our business was incredible. It literally lowered the age demographic of our shoppers by 30 years. And we have sustained that 2 years after the tour. So, and it also, in that 3-day period, we had 6,000 shoppers through our store. It wasn't, I don't think, the goal that you guys set out to accomplish. And it wasn't at all what I expected to happen. But we have seen an uptick in our out-of-town shoppers, and the demographics, which we needed to lower, has happened. So I wanted to thank you for doing that, because, you know, that has been something that I love to share with people. And I don't even know that you know you did that for us. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. And it just shows, as Tony said, people don't even get the reach you have. They don't. So I'm like you, Mayor. I think 2% is a pittance.
Shh, lots more.
In 3 years.
I mean, let's be reasonable then.
I mean, that's the way, I just think, not often do you find an organization that really has all these roll-off things that even they don't understand the impact of their organization.
I think you got a bunch of people standing behind you, so thank you, well done.
The board, you guys have done very good. You're very cohesive. And Jill, I really appreciate your servant's heart. You are hardworking, and I appreciate it.
I'm a crier, so.
Who's got tissues?
I've got them, Jill. And they're not used, bring them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you.
All right, very good. Thank you for that presentation. We will now move on to resolutions. Number 1, resolution number 5953, entitled Resolution Supporting the Home Base Iowa Initiative. Mike, can you explain, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, certainly. And we have an exciting proposal this evening presented by the PACE Alliance, and specifically what this resolution will do is to proclaim the city's support for Home Base Iowa. Now, this initiative is sponsored by the governor's office, and the purpose of it is to help military veterans, particularly transitioning service members who can find jobs in Iowa. And by our approval this evening, we'd be voicing support for the program. So let's go ahead, please, Corey. Now, the first step in becoming a home-based community is approval of a resolution by the City Council. There would also be responsibilities of the community that would be led by the PACE Alliance on these items to provide community incentive packages, community business support, community signage, and community event information. It's our understanding the PACE Alliance is kind of coordinating this on behalf of the community, Mr. Mayor. And I would like to say also that we do have representatives of the PACE Alliance in the audience this evening that would be happy. That was a very brief overview of an important program for the state of Iowa on this. And we do have representatives from the PACE Alliance. We have Janae, Maria, and Terry Ross in the crowd tonight. So if the council does have any questions on the proposed program, the city's role, the PACE Alliance, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to answer your questions the council have on this matter. But in summary, we are recommending approval of the resolution, which proclaims the city's support for home-based Iowa.
I'd like to just voice my support for becoming a home-based Iowa community. That's something that I know has been going on. I know the governor has just re-energized it, but that's been going on for quite a few years. That you know, they've challenged a lot of businesses throughout the entire state to become supportive of the home-based Iowa initiative, and I think it's time for all the communities to sign up for that support as well. So I'd like to throw my support behind that. And now I'll open it up for any other comments or questions that the rest of the council may have.
You know, it's on the table yet.
I guess it isn't. I got ahead of myself, didn't I? Do I hear a motion for approval? Skibout. Support Bachoven. Any discussion now that it's on the table? Do I need to re-say all of that?
No. I think it's about time we step up and improve it. It's a good program.
I don't think anybody else.
Any way we can support,
Yeah.
we need to do that.
All right, very good. Seeing no additional discussion, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk call the roll.
Skibout.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Motion carried. On to number 2, resolution number 5954, entitled a resolution approving change order number 1 with Joiner Construction for the Pella Sports Park Phase 2 project. Mike, have you explained it?
I guess Mr. Mayor's background on this is the mayor said this resolution would approve change order number 1 for phase 2 of the Pella Sports Park. The total amount of change orders, $3,465. City's share would be 50% of this, or just over about $1,732. Now, what the purpose of this change order is to add concrete to the plaza area for the 2 new proposed ball fields that are going to be constructed this summer as well. We have a little bit of background on this, and this is also included in the council packet. Corey, please proceed. Now, as far as the contract summary, we started off with an original contract for construction of phase 2 of the Pella Sports Park, which includes 2 new ball fields and approximately 3,700 linear foot walking trail to the sports complex. Total cost of the contract is just over $894,000. The change order of work considering this evening is for $3,465. The city share would be about $1,730 of this. If this is approved by council, total revised contract would be $897,684. It is important to note when we did approve our contract fields of procedure for phase 2 of the sports park, we included approximately $40,000 for change order items for it. This is $3,400 of that $40,000 that was included in the budget. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, we're more than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on this proposed change order.
Thanks, Mike. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Peterson?
Support.
Support DeYoung. Discussion?
Are they actually concrete border around the infield?
Jeanette, do you want to answer?
What was the
that
question?
Where's the concrete going?
So right on that drawing to the right there, the darker little squares, that shows where all the concrete's gonna be, and that actually goes around the whole field. So it's not just a border, it's like a sidewalk. I forget what it is, if it's 8 or 10 feet out. So then it'll allow for, seating on concrete as well, and an entrance on concrete into the dugouts and on.
It's outside the fence.
It's outside the fence, yeah.
How come that was deselected in the beginning?
It was just the way we had the alternate set up, and I guess we were a little too optimistic, thinking we were gonna get some alternates approved. So it wasn't until we started doing the excavation for those fields that Kevin and Chandler went out there and they went, wait a second, that's gonna be a little bit hard to maintain. So, and we had a bigger concrete plaza area in the middle, so what we actually did was just, we tried to do it without a change order and just moving concrete, but then we couldn't get it quite wide enough to make it comfortable for walking on. So that's where the extra, a little bit extra comes in.
Thank you.
So this envelops the 2 new fields.
Correct. Yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk call the roll.
Peterson.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Skibout.
Motion carries. We'll move on to ordinance number 1, ordinance number 955, entitled an ordinance amending sections 15.04 and 17.06 of the city code of the city of Pella, Iowa, for the purpose of increasing the compensation for the mayor and city council members. This is the first reading. Mike, if you'd explain.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to, and as the mayor said, this proposed ordinance will increase the compensation for elected officials. The increase in compensation will start, the new council term that will start on January 1st, 2020. Let's go ahead with background on this. As far as compensation for our elected officials, and that compensation levels have not changed in the past 10 years. And in looking at this item, we have a couple reasons why we are proposing this proposal. Is from city administration this evening. We've discussed this previously during work sessions. But the time that elected officials spend on city business, and most people are shocked by this when they first, and particularly what I've noticed is when they get newly elected, on the time commitment to be an elected official. But generally speaking, somewhere between 5 to 30 hours per week. And the reason why it's more than what you find for a typical city our size is Pella is a full service community. In other words, when we look at the city council, oftentimes when you look at towns of 10,000, there's a separate board that's over the utilities for the city, and they act somewhat autonomous from the city government. In Pella, there's direct oversight of the city utilities by the city council. We also operate an electric utility, which takes additional time on this as well. It is important to know when we look at the compensation levels and consider it's been 10 years since they've been raised, there's a significant amount of time that's currently being spent, and the city is currently contemplating proceeding with the telecommunications utility. If that decision is to proceed yes on this, which we're currently in our due diligence period, and we're hoping to have information at 60 days to allow an informed decision by the city council on that, the time spent on city affairs will be more than 5 to 30 hours you're currently averaging. So please keep that in mind. Let's go ahead, please, Cory. As far as what is being proposed, again, this would start on January 1st, 2020, the new term of the new future city council. Proposed annual compensation for the mayor would be $13,500. The annual compensation of the city council member would be $6,000. Would increase all the way till January 2023 on a set schedule that you see right up here to $18,000 for the mayor and $9,000 for the city council members as well. After that point, it would be tied to how we compensate city employees, and it would be based on the same increase that we have for city employees with this as well, which is based on the Midwest region CPI. Now, it is very important to understand, at least from city staff standpoint, it's important that we recognize and considering this ordinance, the amount of time it takes to be an elected official. And what we asked of it, we want to make sure that we are able to attract good candidates for city council and mayor's position in future years with that. In addition, this increase is also just reflective of the amount of time with the utilities, the time it takes on this, and the expertise with this as well. So I would characterize it 2 ways. It's been 10 years since there's been an increase in elected officials' compensation, so we have a little bit of catch-up that we need to be doing. And also, we also need to be reflective of the time spent on city affairs on this and fairly compensate our elected officials. And so that's at least the position of city administration on this. So with this, it's important to know the ordinance has to be, council is going to approve it. The ordinance would need to be in place before the elections start in November 2019 this year, but it would be for a new council term starting on January 1st, 2020. So, Mr. Mayor, that is the staff's presentation and recommendation for consideration this evening. More than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on this item.
Thank you, Mike. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Steve Out. Support. Support DeYoung. Discussion?
This is an awkward thing to do.
No doubt.
Come a long way from $600.
They come a long way from $600. You're right. How long we got $600 in? That's used to, long time. But it does require a lot of time. If you're gonna do it, and be involved, it requires time.
I would reiterate what Mike just alluded to, and also you too, Bruce, and that is, I don't think anyone really recognizes the amount of time commitment, off hours, telephone calls, sidebar visits, conversations at events, how many times you go, and please don't hear what I'm not saying, we are not complaining in the least, because we all do this because we love the community. But there is a tremendous amount of time commitment in order to do it, whether you're at a social event, whether you're at the swimming pool, whether you're at Hy-Vee after church. You have those conversations, and it is a big commitment. And knowing what you need to talk about and to be able to represent the positions in the community and represent the citizens when you come back to meetings is a commitment that you need to make sure that you take seriously. And being able to compensate people for that commitment, I think, is appropriate. And hopefully I have encapsulated what an awful lot of you guys are feeling. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk, call the roll.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Motion carried. And I do want to point out again, to reiterate, this is not effective until next year. So this is, we're voting on something that may not be applying to us or some of us. So, that being said, we will, I don't think there's any need to waive the remainder of the readings, so we'll move on to claims, abstract, and bills number 2026. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Move to approve and issue warrants.
Motion to approve and issue warrants by Skibout.
Support.
Support Bachhoven. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk call the roll.
Skibout.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Motion carried. We will move on to other business, public forum. Do any council members have any business that needs to be brought before the council at this time? Do any members of the audience have any issues that they would like to bring before the council at this time? Please come up to the microphone, state your name, where you live, and keep it to 3 minutes if you can. Seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So.
Van Strylen?
Support.
Support Peterson. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Clerk call the roll.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Skibout.
Motion carried. We are adjourned.